Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good. Can I ask a favor? We currently have a small audience. If you're sitting in one of these sections, could you either move to the middle section or just kind of generally move in? I like to connect with the audience when I'm presenting, and it's a 180-degree view here. It'll also put some of you not in the light, so I can actually see you. That would be really great. Thank you very much. So my name is Lewallen. I work in the US subsidiary for Microsoft, and my job is to lead the CSP business. So I do CSP 100% of the time, 24/7. And I've been doing this role for about the last 2 years. So it's been a time of tremendous amount of change. And we'll talk about what that journey has been like. This session is going to cover a lot of ground. There'll be a lot of, we'll talk about some industry context, we'll talk about CSP context and what that means. But ultimately, there's a real need to understand how, what sales looks like in the managed services world and what that means in terms of how we enable sales, and not only sales, which is really the organization as a whole, to adapt. And we'll actually have 2 partners who will be joining us who have had very different journeys to building a managed services business. And I think that that will be a very, some valuable insight for you. So we're going to talk about the opportunity, right? So just kind of a view of the market and some thoughts and observations that I have. We'll talk about the path, which is CSP, and I think that will be clear as we go through why I call it that. And then for the journey and the insight, that's when we'll have Chris and Ryan will be up here to share their experience with you. So actually, before we do that, I want to do something different in terms of a poll. If everybody would stand up, instead of raise your hands, I'd like you to stand up. If you are, and then if you're familiar with the CSP program, like if I said you come up here for 2 minutes and explain what it is, I want you to remain standing. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer. Okay, and how many of you or your companies are selling today in CSP? Okay, I like that. Some people stood back up. That's awesome. How many of you have more than 5 customers? All right, and how many of you have more than 10? More than 20? Wow, more than 50? More than 100? All right, I'll stop going there. That's very helpful context. And thank you very much for all of you guys. The reason I ask is because as an evangelist for this program, I talk about it constantly. And I was recently reminded there was some internal research. We do official polling twice a year, but there are also different types of pulse surveys that go out. And the spring survey indicated that in our partner ecosystem, out of a representative sample, obviously, only 1/3 of our partners know what CSP is. Not maybe hard for you to understand, and hopefully this week that number, that percentage has gone up. But it's helpful for me to know where everybody is, so it provides more context for how I address some of the content. So how many of you guys have read the book Consumption Economics? Okay, if you haven't, if you get one takeaway from today, I really encourage you to read the book. It's written by J.B. Wood and a couple other folks, and one of the authors is actually here this year. J.B. was at the conference last year. But this really talks about how the industry is changing. And one of the most salient points that he makes is that part of the impact of cloud is that the risk in the industry is shifting significantly from the customer back to the vendors and to the people who have built the ecosystem. So if you think about the way that all the major technology players were built, large and small, was essentially the customer took all of the risk and spent a lot of money on hardware, software, and services before a project was even deployed. And his research indicated that about 70% of the economic value of a deal was passed to the ecosystem before the partner even turned on the service. And so the reality of cloud is that that's significantly shifting back. And the reason, one reason why that's important is obviously we need to understand where our customers are and what's going to be motivating them. But the impact of that is also that being able to get paid up front is rapidly changing and kind of moving to this pay-as-you-go model. Or another way that they describe it is no usage, no money, right? So customers have a lot more power, and the switching costs are becoming significantly lower. So if you haven't read the book, when you read it, it's kind of describing where much more of the world is today. It was actually written in 2011, and I think it was a very forward-looking book. I reread portions of it probably once a quarter and always take away something new. So one of the impacts of what's going on with the risk shifting away from the customer is they're looking to do more risk sharing. And they're looking to do, one of the outcomes is reducing, or looking to reduce or to remove complexity in the buying process. So if you think about coordinating procurement and processes and purchasing from multiple vendors, hardware, software, services, different payment terms, different contract lengths, 2/3 of customers are looking to consolidate those relationships into a single provider. Now that could be a single platform company like Microsoft. It could be more of a cloud services broker where they have multiple clouds involved. But the large point here is the customers are really looking to reduce complexity in the process. Another one of the outcomes is where customers are looking for risk sharing is that more than 8 in 10 are looking for a different type of relationship. And so I think about this in a couple different ways, one of which is the journey to the cloud is actually fraught with complexity. So while the purchasing process can become more simple, what it actually means for a customer, some customers feel this need to go to the cloud, but some of them maybe not even know what that means, or they may understand some of the economic benefits, but they don't understand other aspects of it. So that increases the opportunity for all of us to become more relevant, but it also challenges us to show up and to sell and to be in front of our customers in a very different way. And so another way that I look at this is while customers want us to be more of a trusted advisor, they're looking for more skin in the game. They're looking for a partner to share a lot more risk along this journey. And the way I think about those things manifest themselves is the monetization of the industry from upfront services, software, and hardware is really the monetization of that in the new paradigm is managed services. Subscription, it could be variable or it could be fixed costs, but essentially that ongoing subscription-based model where we're essentially showing up and earning our customers' trust on a regular and daily basis. So the dynamic that we see is that the imperative for all of us is really to change the way that we think about our customers and that we shift from what's the current quarter, what's the deal that's coming in, how do we close the executive, to how we're continually selling to the executive, and we're building a roadmap over time to earn trust. And the first thing becomes getting into an account, not eating the whole enchilada at one time, but establishing credibility and establishing not a product view of the world to come, but a platform view and a relationship view with you. And then obviously over time, looking to expand that relationship and grow it more deeply. And if you look at metrics that are rampant in the industry, especially I follow some venture capitalists and looking at metrics especially for X as a service type companies, customer lifetime value is a huge one of the metrics that gets tracked. So we talked about the opportunity. When I mentioned the path, I was talking about CSP. So in our partnership, part of what we're doing to help us collectively move in that direction is providing this platform, right? A platform to help you build managed services business and a recurring revenue model. So I often get asked, what is CSP? And it's multiple things. The point of this slide is that it's not a single thing. It is a new business model. It's an annuity stream. It's absolutely a licensing program, but it's really setting up to deliver how we collectively deliver value to customers in a fundamentally different way. So this really shifts a lot of the, I'd say a lot of the perceived control that Microsoft would have in the past about, we had very structured rules around the channels through which our licensing was actually sold to end customers. And now it's a little bit of kind of like the wild, wild west, meaning our relationship is to sell software 100% through the channel in CSP, and then see what partners do with that in terms of productizing their IP and services, being in the position to do all of the direct billing, provisioning, management, support, et cetera, and putting you in a position to really have that ongoing annuity relationship with the client. And it's been fun. Prior to this role, I actually was directly in the partner business management position, and even some of the partners who were doing leading work, when I did that, for 6.5 years, this is a new and different dynamic for them. And as we'll hear from some of our partners, depending on where you are coming into this journey, this will either feel more natural or less natural. Let's see. So one of the things I want to do is to talk about where we're seeing success, like what kind of customer scenarios where we're seeing our partners building business. Probably the third one up here is probably the most prevalent, where companies are just looking to kind of fully outsource their IT infrastructure. It becomes a lot easier. It's a single source. It becomes a flexible purchasing and payment model. Another one is the first one up here, which is where partners are coming to the table. You can be successful essentially saying, hey, I'm going to run Office 365 as a managed service. But some partners go well beyond that in terms of bringing in business consulting, training, end user readiness, managed services that kind of provide a whole different level of engagement with the customer. And we actually have a lot of customers who are ripe for this, who I would say were not customers who would have bought a 3-year fixed agreement from Microsoft in the past under an enterprise agreement, for example. We've seen several multinational firms who worked. One was a major manufacturing company and had 3 lines of business, and over the next 12 months they knew that they were going to divest in one and acquire potentially 1 or 2 more. And the CIO told our partner, I can't tell you where my company will be in 3 years. I have no idea. We could be 15,000 people, we could be 40. And so this platform now provided a way for that to happen. Another area where we're seeing a lot of this is in industries where there are seasonal workers, so hospitality, retail, areas where there's also a decent amount of turnover, for example, in the real estate brokerage space. Those are some examples of where we've seen some success on a large scale. And for those of you, this one is up here just as a reminder for those of you who are becoming more familiar with this. We go to market with partners in 2 different ways. One of them is called the direct model, one is called the indirect model. One is not better than the other, they're just different. In either case, you do own the end customer relationship. It just has to do with whether you provide all of the billing, provisioning, management, infrastructure, cost support, or whether you work with one of our partners to use some of their services. So, and I wanted to make sure that these are the 15 that we have authorized in the US. I believe all of them are actually here this week, and several of them are major sponsors. And if you have any questions about how to participate through the model, I would encourage you to go down and spend some time with one or more of these folks. They all have big recruitment programs going on. They all have different types of offerings. And they can, to be honest with you, they're going to be able to offer a lot of things that Microsoft is not going to, because they have multi-cloud and multi-product cloud marketplaces. They have marketing programs, loyalty programs, training boot camps, et cetera. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at that if that fits where you are. And we're about 2.5 years into this journey, and a couple things I wanted to highlight. Some of these may be new, some of these have been talked about at the show so far, but we're going to continue to tap into new markets, and that's typically going to be done with new types of services. So the government market is becoming is a hugely important one for Microsoft. And we just last month launched the Azure Government Cloud Services in CSP. For those who you don't know, we have some dedicated data centers in the US and actually some in other countries. They call them sovereign clouds, but they're built with additional layers of regulatory compliance, security, et cetera, so we can sell to certain portions of the federal government, and a lot of state and local governments like to buy through these cloud services as well. Today we have Azure available, Dynamics 365 and Office 365. I'm sorry, Dynamics 365 and Office 365 will be coming available through that service later this year. A few other things that are important is we're constantly improving the actual operational platform. This is a new area of muscle building for Microsoft. We have a robust commerce platform on the consumer side. I don't know, we probably have 12 or 13 million Xbox Live subscribers, right? We do that really well, but when it comes to building a platform to enable a ongoing month-to-month transactional business, that's still new for us. So we're making a lot of investments in that platform. So it's actually the platform that used to run that and the types of services that we offer through it. One of the big things that was a miss and a gap before was for Office 365, we didn't have the ability to provision a trial that could then be converted into a paid subscription. We announced that this week that's available. It's a 30-day trial and essentially helps you get customers up and going without having to take on the risk. Before, it's really terrible. We made the partner absorb the financial risk of doing that. That's not the case any longer. There's also a lot more rich data and analytics coming into the platform that it will allow you to understand your customers, what their usage patterns are, and then overall do customer management. How many people were in the keynote yesterday morning and heard Ron talk about some of the changes? Let's see. One of the most important things is reducing friction and improving alignment. In the past, we had a dynamic that was not helpful for growth in CSP about how revenue is recognized through our enterprise and other agreements and CSP. And this year, all of the people inside of Microsoft who get paid on Azure revenue will only be paid on consumed revenue. So because CSP is a pay-as-you-go, not a commitment model, that reduces the friction and kind of removes a lot of that gap where there's alignment with Microsoft-based sellers. So the way I think about it is there's going to be a lot more people inside of Microsoft who are looking for which partners have great solutions that help drive Azure-based consumption. So I'm pretty excited about that announcement. And on the incentive side, you know, we've for partners who have one of our 8 cloud competencies, even at the silver level, you have the opportunity to earn an 8% rebate on top of the standard product margins. And then there are accelerators that are done at the worldwide level. In the US, we actually put in, we had a significant budget as well, and we put in an additional accelerator for Dynamics 365 and for Azure. And on the Azure side for this year, that's an additional 10 points of margin. So that's pretty significant if you think about 15 plus 8 plus 10. It will tell you how much of a bet we're putting on this and what type of investment we're making to be especially successful with that this year. So I've talked to you about this path right now. It's kind of been theoretical. What I want to make sure that you come away with is the fact that this is real and there's momentum and there is something here that you can bet your business on. So as of the end of June, we've now had almost 8,000 partners who've sold. All this information is US based. So close to 8,000 folks last year. When I presented at WPC, that number was about 3,200 or 3,300. So we've seen a very significant increase in the participation rate of partners. And as I mentioned before, I think it's important to call out nearly 90% of our partners participate through the indirect model. And so that provides a lot of, I mentioned a lot of the value add they provide. And you'll see that that is borne out through how our partners are participating in the US. And I think that's pretty consistent on a global basis. We now have in excess of 150,000 customers. This was a number that this customer count number has probably surprised me more than anything. I've been really happy with the revenue growth and with the seats growth, but to have this kind of reach in 2 years is pretty remarkable, and this number is growing at a very healthy clip. And I want to talk about our customers a little bit because the dynamics are pretty interesting when you look underneath the hood. So of those 152,000 customers, 98% of them fall into what we have historically called SMB. And SMB just means they haven't signed an enterprise agreement with us. That's kind of how I think about it. One way to know that is to look at the size of 3 of our top 10 deals in the US kind of throughout the life of the program are SMB deals. And those 3 deals have an average of 8,200 seats. So there's a value prop to be, to even in our classic SMB space. So even though the average deal is, average customer size is about 24 or 25 users, we have some very, very large deals. In fact, the top 1% of our customer base have bought about a third of our Office 365 seats, and that average deal size is in excess of 500 users. So it's also selling in our larger accounts, not just in a pilot type way, but in a pretty significant size way. That being said, we've sold in all segments, so all commercial segments. We have what we call major EPG accounts, all the way down to the smallest micro SMB. We've now established a business selling in education and also in the government space. In the government space, as I mentioned, with the availability of government cloud services, is only going to increase. 15% of our revenue comes from our managed accounts. So even though they're a small percent of the customer base, they are buying fairly significantly sized deals. And we've made about a 2.5x improvement year over year in the number of customers who are buying our other cloud services. So aside from Office 365, primarily Azure, EMS, and our Dynamics portfolio. So the last year, since WPC of last year, and what was WPC, we sold about 2.2 million seats of Office 365. And since the inception of the program, this is what it looks like. So all of you who are already selling and have directly contributed to this, I really appreciate that. This is quite a phenomenal pace of growth for the business. And as you can see, we had a really strong June as well. For those of you who are looking to buy or to sell Azure-based solutions, it's hard to combine in our managed accounts because we have some massive accounts who are consuming tens of millions of dollars. But if you look in our unmanaged account space, a CSP deal versus a non-CSP deal, the consumption is nearly 2x. So when a partner is involved, we see a lot more consumption. We actually know that's the case as well in our managed accounts. It's just the multiple is not as high. But if you're looking for what customers are willing to do in terms of consuming Azure-based cloud services, CSP is providing a good platform. And when you think about the incentives and the add-on services opportunity, I think that should be encouraging for you. So with that, I want to kind of go back to the consumption economics space and talk about sales. Because of the dynamics that are happening with customers, as we move in talking about sales and sales enablement, this is a figure kind of directly out of the book that really talks about the imperative, and this is pretty significant work. It's significant work for us. If you watch this again later, or if you end up getting a copy of these slides, I would encourage you to look at this in context of our own internal reorganization that was announced last year at a global level. moving people around, establishing customer success units, which is not something we've had broadly at the company before, whose job is to have that ongoing relationship and to drive consumption. A significantly greater vertical versus a geography focus. We'll still have geographical-based sales units, but we're primarily focusing ourselves around 6 industries. And then essentially aligning yourself with our business, with our customers' business problems, and the need to do a lot more solution and business value selling. And then, of course, what we talked before about the cost sharing or the risk sharing on the economic side of it. So I want to now kind of go and bring up our partners. We're going to kind of have one-by-one conversations, but I really want to talk about how they have built or how they are building managed services on top of the CSP platform, and then in particular what that means for how their organizations are having to change and evolve. So with that, I'm going to bring up Chris Pyle. Chris, you want to go ahead and come up? Excellent. Let's have a seat here.
All right.
Thanks for doing this, Chris.
Yeah,
I've actually known Chris for a while. I mentioned I used to work directly in a partner sales executive role, and I never got to manage Champion directly, but I got to hear a lot about the great things that they were doing. And so, Chris, maybe you can just kind of start off with telling us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Chris Pyle with a company called Champion Solutions Group, traditional systems integrator, sold hardware, software, integrated them together, and mostly project type of services work around the data center. Big partners with Cisco, HP, IBM, and doing that type of integration work. And about 6 years ago, we said this cloud thing might be something. So we teamed up with Microsoft and really developed a new business unit called Message Ops, which really handles a lot of all things that have an MRR, a monthly recurring revenue stream to it. And so that business unit is what we gave birth to about 6 years ago, and it's doing very well for us. And
got it. So that's so Champion. You guys have been in business for 35 years.
Yeah.
Right. So you guys had a lot of organizational DNA that was that was different. So what was the kind of the catalyst for you guys to make the change? Well,
first of all, we understood. I read the book Consumption Economics, and I would agree. If you haven't read that book, you have to read that book. It's fantastic. And after I got done reading the book, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's talking about our business. But the hardest thing, and I don't know about you guys, but my sales team loved getting those commission checks, from selling one big chunk, maybe a $400,000 piece of hardware and software. And it was really hard to get their attention, William, on listen, I want you to go sell a subscription. I want you to go sell a recurring revenue stream. I want you to go, really do that. And I wasn't getting anybody really to pay attention because I didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know what I mean? It's a great business. We're not a huge company. We do about $125 million. And a lot of it is in hardware. I like hardware. I like selling hardware. I like selling services. And I don't believe it's all going to go away, around implementing hardware and software solutions. So what we ended up doing is we ended up starting this Message Ops business unit. And really, the reality of it is these salespeople only got paid for selling monthly recurring revenue services, whether it's cloud services, managed services, or any type of subscription-based service.
So your evaluation was that instead of kind of putting your existing sales force in this awkward position, you'd said, let's kind of go greenfield and build something from the ground up.
Yeah, because we really wanted to get the attention of it, and it really worked. And the other thing, and I can't talk for you guys, but what happened with us is we'd walk into our customers and we'd say, oh, we want to talk to you about cloud. And they're like, wait a second. You're my NetApp guy. Don't tell me you now know everything about cloud too. And we were getting some resistance there. But when we said, hey, we started a new cloud business unit by the name of Message Ops, let me introduce you to somebody who really understands cloud. By the way, it's not me, I'm your NetApp guy. We saw an opening of where people were a lot more receptive than the same guy that sold me my hardware was the same guy that now is going to tell me about my journey to consuming, So for us, it was, at first I was upset about it, but now over time we're seeing it, be more realistic and having that two separate sales forces.
Talk about, so that was the strategy. Talk about differences in how you hired people, how you trained them, and then kind of like to talk about the compensation differences there too, I think would be great.
Well, we didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so we didn't touch the compensation with the core team. The new team that we brought on, we really focused them on getting them to sell the consumption base. And I'm not going to tell you there's an answer, and if anybody's got a real clear answer and this works great, please come see me after. We've tried different things. We tried paying them the first year of profit, on the commission up front. That didn't work out so well because people in this consumption model, as you mentioned, they could cancel.
Right.
Or go up or down, and all of a sudden the person at one minute, well, wait a second, you paid me on 16 managed VMs and now it's 36. Don't I get commissioned on that? Yeah, but you didn't have anything to do with that. The customer's natural expansion did that. You didn't sell anything, but I'm the relationship guy. So that was a challenge. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. Where we are right now is we do pay a reduced commission, but for the lifetime value of the client and wanting them involved in making sure that the client is consistently consuming. But there's no mistake. When they come into our portal and they do an add, change, or remove, we know that there was really no sale going on from that perspective. But like Microsoft, we recently about 8 months ago, we started a customer success unit. And it's so funny because that's where you guys got the name from, because that's what we call ours, right, Lisa? And we're seeing huge success in that, that the customer's guard's down, and it's really, we're here just to make you, unleash the business value of what you've already consumed.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because that will strike most people as a non-revenue producing entity. And maybe customers just view that as a sneaky way of having more salespeople. Yeah. Talk about what those folks do and how they contribute to growing the customer.
So the first thing is I wish I could show the PowerPoint of what our customer success managers do. The first thing is they have this little kid with this Superman thing that says, "I am the promise keeper." And that's what they say to the customer. We are the promise keeper. We will commit everything that the sales team's promised, we will deliver on. That's what we're about. And we're going to make sure you get the utmost value. But I'm not a salesperson, I'm not a technical person, but I'm here to represent you back to our team and to Microsoft, if you would. And the customer's guard goes down. The next thing you know, they're calling my customer success unit and managers more than they're calling my client managers. And more than they're calling my technical people to assist them in their managed services. Because what we've come to learn real quick is that people aren't, they're not buying IT anymore. I'm saying they still are, but instead of buying IT, they're consuming IT. And what the customer success manager is it's their job to help them consume it in the right way and really unleash the value of it. And these people get paid a little bit of bonus based upon a cross-sell, upsell, but they just enjoy, happiness and, high fives and recognition and stuff like that. It's not a salesperson. It's a very unique customer service person who's socially adequate, can, do a lot of things on social media and stuff like that. But we found so far some really good success in that model and the cross-sell going up against it. But they don't hold a quota. Their only quota is to ensure that the customer remains a customer and that they're consuming everything that we're selling them.
Great. So that's it's an interesting addition of an investment that you're making that's really kind of going to that customer lifetime value, as opposed to running transactions. And I like the fact that they're basically they're quoted based on low or no churn as opposed to sales.
Going back to the consumption economics book.
So I can see how they have credibility. Yep. One of the other things that you guys do, I'd like you to talk about, just a little brief context for the audience, is the selling cycle and who's responsible for selling is expanding. We talked about kind of enhancing the customer lifetime value, but a lot of customers now have gone fairly far in their process before they have an engagement either proactively reached out to by a salesperson or they initiate that. You guys have done some stuff around showing up in the community and being relevant. Could you talk a little bit about the development of that and kind of the impact that it has on your business?
Yeah, so we really spent a lot of time on the social selling side, and we got there's a really good customer, companies that I enjoy working with, Co-opetition, but PTG, they do a really good job themselves. Reed and their team over there do a great job. And what I think the combination is really what we do, and we're providing a lot of great education, for the lack of a better term, tips, tricks, and all things about that, and really, developing a social, conscious. And so we have two people type of sales. We have MRRs, which are marketing response reps, where they are responsible for full inbound lead and live chat on our websites. And then we have our SDRs, which are our sales development reps that spend the time on the phones. Now, this is completely different than the traditional things where it's all outside salespeople that we're using. You have an inside sales rep setting up an appointment for an outside guy. The reality of it is we're transacting business in live chat, real time, doing business, and then going into the customer success people. Like we see, because we all have on behalf of, right, administer on behalf, we see when things are going on in our client's tenant, whether it's Azure, Office 365, EMS, we see what's going on, so we automatically are reaching out to them saying, hey, look, do you need any help with this? Or did you know that you might want to look at this SKU instead of this one? So that whole MRR, the marketing response rep, and the SDR was a new plan for us as a traditional VAR. I mean, I don't even know if people like that word anymore or not, but typical solution provider. We're seeing a lot more high volume transitions in that regard, because we're up to about 40,000 seats now in CSP, a lot more in EMS and other things like that, and we're seeing a lot more transactions at the SMB space online.
Right, so the cost of sales there has to be effective, and I know you don't like to brag, but share what the size of the community is that you guys are reaching, that you've kind of built up over the last few years, you're providing education to and through.
Yeah, so we have about 90,000 Message Ops members now, a lot of partners too, at here we send out tips, tricks, a lot of great things. I mean, you want to start getting real good relevance. The way we started, and the most highly read blog articles, is we just went and talked to our help desk. That's all we do. Go to the help desk. Hey, what's the top questions you had this week? Oh God, all of a sudden we're getting all these questions about this. What's the answer? Great, here's the answer. Throw up a blog. Next thing you know, man, people are downloading that stuff. Yeah, man, I'm having the same problem. And it doesn't take a lot, right? You go talk to the people that are really customer facing, and that's where we're seeing some of the most popular downloaded articles. And the 90,000 people that subscribe to our tips, tricks, and stuff like that, these are people who come to our website and say, yes, I want to learn more. I want tips and tricks, and to socially engage there. So yeah, we're really proud of that, because last year it was about 45,000, so it's grown a lot.
That's impressive, and I think that that's a really interesting, effective way of showing up as being helpful without being in a direct sale type mode. But it obviously, I know you guys get great customer leads and turn into real customers. So I'm curious, as you go forward, what are you guys have done a lot of investing, you've had a lot of success. What are the main challenges, though, that you still see for your sales teams moving forward?
It's hard to move from selling something you can bounce a tennis ball off of, like a piece of equipment, to a subscription service and an MRR and a managed service. Some of these guys, let's face it, they've made friends with some of the admins, because we sell to admin, we sell to business lines, but let's face it, it used to be, the IT guys was the guys, that was our customers, those were our customers. And sometimes when you walk in on a managed service, they feel threatened as the provider to say, I want to take over the managed service. So there's a defense there. Hey, that's my buddy, or something like that. So there's also an education, I think, that on the IT side that you and I spoke about one time, that we're trying to be more than the IT guy in the hallway, but more of a partner in the boardroom. And the reality is that's not just us, but we're also talking to our customers, the IT admin guy, saying, listen, man, you need to start moving up a little bit and moving into the boardroom, because your job is going to get eliminated. and it's there. So that's really the hardest thing. And then I would also really recommend, to everybody, if you're looking into the managed services business, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are very successful right now in that business. What I found is the challenge that I come in is managing the minutes. When a help desk rings, okay, if you're not managing how long that help desk call is, how expensive that help desk call is per minute, and how quick you can close that with high customer sat, you're missing, because what we're finding is like, oh, okay, great, we're a CSP for EMS. Great, well, we take these customers on, and next thing you know, we're getting help desk calls, and the amount of margin that we're making on the EMS, you're like, well, wait a second, I just chewed that up in a help desk call. So you got to be a little bit cognizant of that and know when to sell premium support versus giving maybe a managed support away. Yeah. So I think that's an evolution of learning that I think all of us will have to go through over time. And I'm not trying to promote any one PSA platform, but we use Autotask. I don't know if anybody else in here uses Autotask, but we break down the help desk cost by minute. So when we pick up the phone, open up a ticket, the time starts ticking.
The meter starts going.
And we know exactly if it's 20 minutes, okay, great, that cost us $8, to close that ticket. Yeah. And I think, monitoring equals money in the managed services business. And I think it's something that I've learned over the past several years, that if you're not watching the pennies, the dollars will not take care of themselves.
Yep. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming up, and we'll have you up for Q&A here in a few minutes
great.
At the
Thanks,
end.
William.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ryan McDonald, come on up.
Hey, William, thanks.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, great.
Good to have you. So Ryan and his company are coming from a very different world. The 10th Magnitude has been in business since 2010, so not nearly as long as Champion, has a different DNA and story, and that's really what I want you to hear from Ryan. So before we get to 10th, tell us a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
Ryan.
I've been IT for 20 years. For the last 15 years, I was a CIO at an ISV that focused on IoT monitoring in oil and gas. And I've been, historically responsible for engineering, teams and infrastructure and security. But in 2014, we decided to get out of the data center business and move everything to Azure. And it was really that transformation of moving everything to the cloud, which led me to 10th Magnitude, and really wanting to be as deep in Azure as I could and work as closely as customers as I could. But ultimately at 10th Magnitude as Director of Managed Services, I'm responsible for the vision of our managed services division, working with our key stakeholders and delivering on that vision.
Okay, two important things. If Ryan's face looks familiar, he was actually on Keynote with a very scripted thing and one of those nice little microphones that kind of gets taped to your face for the U.S. Keynote last year. So, and that was in his prior role, and then you've been at 10th for about 10 months.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah. So a little bit more about 10th Magnitude. We were founded in 2010, like you said, and we were founded really, with the idea of developing software for customers, helping them improve their margins and their market share. And it's really the promise of Azure that's allowed us to do that. But in the last few years, what we've been focusing on is delivering software-defined agile data centers through Azure. So,
and doing pretty well. You guys were a global award winner this year, right?
Yes, we were. So we were the hybrid cloud and infrastructure partner of the year, and really that journey for 10th Magnitude has been, we're 100% focused on Azure. That's the first thing you need to know about us, and that's our line in the sand. And through the years, we've grown, from the original PaaS offerings through infrastructure as a service, through DevOps and infrastructure as code, and really focused these last couple of years on developing software driven DevOps, really kind of automated data center solutions with our customers.
Excellent. So you're in the building process. You didn't come to 10th Magnitude to build a managed services practice, did you?
No, I did not. I actually, again, like I said, I joined to be as close to Azure as I could and work directly with or as deep with customers as I could. But what was exciting in 2016, Pamlico Capital made an investment into 10th Magnitude, which has really kind of fueled that next level of growth for us. And we're going to build out our managed services division.
Excellent. So his boss is Alex, the CEO of the company, and I've been working with Alex for 2.5 years trying to sell him on getting this done. And shortly after he raised the round of capital, he's like, I'm ready to do this. And I'm like, he's like, I hired a guy to do it. So here he is, living and breathing. So tell us about where you guys are in the building process, and then kind of also in particular talk about the sales element of it, because your salespeople are attuned to a different world as well.
You're exactly right, and we realize this is a completely different business for us from the professional services that we focused on for the last 7 years. So we are going to treat this as a different business, but really we need to make sure that our sales and marketing are aligned to that, and then bringing them in very early to the process, because we really see it as an extension of the value that we provide to our customers as they transform into Azure. So we want to make sure that the sales and marketing teams understand that first and foremost, and then have that front and center as we start these conversations with our customers.
Have you guys decided what you're going to do on the sales compensation side, or are you going to how you're going to integrate that into what people carry in their bag?
That's a really good question, and it's up for debate right now. And one of the things that we are concerned about is we have a very large professional services goal to hit this year, and as we introduce a new product, it creates distraction, so with that distraction, we could risk some of our current goals. So I think we're going to be very strategic about how we incent that and how we make sure that we manage new opportunity with existing business and goals that we have to keep.
Sure. And then talk about where you are in the build. Like if you're building a house, like is the foundation poured and you're putting up the studs? Like what's going on?
Yeah, so we are definitely at the beginning processes of this journey, very much working on getting some of our foundational infrastructure, and from a sales enablement perspective, making sure that we've got our sales and marketing material built. We really want to invest heavily at the beginning of this, so that our sales and marketing teams, they've got the material and they understand the value prop, because it's a different value prop that they have to go sell to the customer now from the professional services. And it's about that lifetime value and sharing some of that risk, like you mentioned. And also, a lot of the customers that we have are very technical and highly complex infrastructure. So making sure that the sales and marketing teams can demonstrate the value that we're going to provide in managing this complex infrastructure that customers are putting inside of Azure.
And you guys are getting close to launching, is that correct?
Yes, we are, definitely. We are
hiring people?
We are hiring people and buying software, setting up our internal systems, and really our short-term goals, and actually having some challenges there, is around some of the traditional tools for managed services don't quite fit in the agile way that we want to use them. So really trying to look at some of those tools and integrating them to meet the kind of automation and agility that we want to have as a managed service provider.
Got it. And then the question: what are your short and medium term goals? I mean, you're about to launch. What I'm sure Alex wants to know or has some expectations. What are you planning on building in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. So some of our short-term goals is to really integrate CSP as part of our process. The common services layer that you mentioned, that's coming live. Taking full advantage of that and some of the opportunities it provides there. And then also medium term is really talking to our customers and understanding how they want to manage the complex environments and building our next generation of solutions kind of outside of IaaS and some basic PaaS services. If you go back to what Satya said in the keynote yesterday about this transition to serverless and AI, right? It's a whole new direction, and thinking about optimizing operations in a serverless and AI world, that's going to take a different approach from a managed services perspective than what you would traditionally think about managing with a VM.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll have you back next year, and you'll have some stripes that you've earned. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'll have you stay here, and Chris, if you'll come up real quick, we'll open it up here to questions. But I hope that our next slide is really about making sure that you have the opportunity to ask questions of me about the business, about the program. Of these guys, about what they're doing in terms of building or extending their businesses. So we've got about 8 minutes, and I'm happy to answer questions as long as there are them. And if there aren't, then we'll be able to get going. Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions. Can you guys? Oh, okay.
There we go.
2 questions. First of all, Chris, I think
Yep.
we're in the same. Actually, I have 3 questions. So you started the cloud journey about 6 years ago. Can you comment on what percentage of your organization's overall revenue has changed to the consumption model?
Yeah, 15.
So it's gone to 15%?
15%.
Okay. I work for a company called CBTS up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we're going through a similar transformation.
Cincinnati Bell?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah, thanks, man. You guys beat us a lot. We compete with you often.
I didn't think we did that much down in Florida.
Yeah, just joking.
So we're going through a transition. How did you target your traditional sales reps? Your box guys.
Yeah.
To
We tried early and we didn't get any attention. That's why we had to create a separate unit. What really got their attention, though, is when we started knocking down deals. And all of a sudden, we landed as a customer called Unilever, right? They're a huge consumer goods and packaging organization. We back up about 3 petabytes a month, every month in 22 different locations around the world, and none of them got commission on that, right? And where's it all? It's all being backed up to the cloud. And yeah, we're monitoring and making sure, and we're testing restores on a quarterly basis. So all of a sudden, then that was good. And then we knocked down Ahold, and we knocked down, what's that big healthcare organization up there in Ohio that we were, Kentucky, begins with a K. Anyway, Kindred, Kindred Healthcare. Yeah. Okay, Kindred Healthcare, that's huge up there in Ohio, right? So that was 40,000 seats that we migrated. And then you had to manage all of that. And then you had to do it all, and you had to monitor it and all this stuff. And all of a sudden the local rep's like, well, wait a second, bro, that's my account, and I'm selling them some printers. Yeah, that's really cool. Keep selling them to printers. You know what I'm saying? So we sort of got that attention. So really, what took a little while before they really globbed on was that the market, was actually, hey, my God, this shit's real. Excuse me, I'm sorry, but this is real, right? And that's when they started paying attention and really started saying, hey, maybe we should bring in this division.
So as we've been approaching, we're a CSP direct today. Most of our work has been Office 365, and as we're migrating our managed service provider practice to a cloud hybrid cloud solution, is it possible to have a mixed model, meaning we're indirect on Azure and direct on Office 365?
Yep.
Okay.
We have some people actually will. They'll take a handful of large strategic accounts and they'll use the cross-platform, but it helps them. They get to limit what the investment they need to make is, but they'll kind of do it that way, and then they'll have a real breadth-driven motion that they'll fulfill through the indirect model. Yep. So gotcha. It's not binary. Yep. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
For Chris, we're the company I work for is an ISV and also a systems integrator, mainly on the services side. But when you look at the new group that that you started 6 years ago, how much of your existing customer base have you penetrated that was, your hardware sales guys?
Yeah, okay, awesome. In the beginning, it was zero, okay? We had to go out, like, I don't want you coming into my account since this is a brand new thing. I feel bad for you. Don't come into my account because this is a brand new thing. This is, they're paying us. I don't want to screw up my relationship for the past 6 years on my ProServe business and try to sell a managed services because I know, don't tell me I'm the sales rep, I know we just gave birth to this. Yeah. And I want you to go prove it first, but not with my client. And all of a sudden, it's not the company's client, it's my client, right? And so it literally probably took 2.5 years worth of a couple hundred wins before we got the opportunity for them to bring us into Unilever. You know what I mean? Or to bring us into Kindred or whoever the big behemoth customers to prove that we had to do it. So it took a while. Now, right, Lisa? I mean, it's the other side. Now their accounts are like, oh yeah, man, look how much Azure work we've done. Look how much Azure stuff we've done. We just want another Azure, deal. So it's the other way. But it did. I don't have the number for you, but I could tell you it took a couple years to gain the trust of our traditional sales force that we know what we're doing. We made the investment in the team, the people, the process, and the technology to deliver. I hope it's probably not what you wanted to hear, but that's what.
No, we had exactly the same experience with our people getting into the installed base of work that we do because it's a lot of repeat business we do over and over.
Yep.
And they're kind of blocking it out. So that's similar. Geographic. Talk to me about. I imagine as a VAR you had a footprint.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So what's happened to your footprint
Wow.
in that managed service business?
Yeah. Awesome. It's a great thing. That's one of the things that I think that teaming with Microsoft under the CSP program is, we have 22 locations in 11 states, predominantly east of the Mississippi. But when you look at our overall managed service and managed cloud service and managed service, it is global. And to your point, William, you brought up the SG&A perspective. A lot of these deals that we're doing with managed cloud service and managed mailbox service, we're doing it we're doing it inbound live chats. We're closing deals on live chats, and I think the key piece around, EMS and Office 365 Azure is the bundling capacity where you're bundling in your managed help desk, you're bundling in your managed mailbox service. So to answer your question is that we just did a deal, believe it or not, in overseas Kuwait. Kuwait, 12,000 people organization, moved them into Azure, moved them into Office 365, and we never went to Kuwait. But a big organization, they're the largest franchisee of Starbucks, Burger Kings, and everything into United Emirates. But we did all that online and Skype and things like that. So it's really allowed us to go global. And it's interesting that William said, just because I'm in Boca Raton, Florida, but we're selling all over the world, and the barriers have really come down. You know what I mean? You don't need to be there anymore. I think as much as we used to when we're selling that iron.
Right. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we'll go one more question. And while you're coming up, one thing I want to do is let you all know there's a number of great sessions that are still left in the show. There are a number of great ones that were beforehand. And right before this, I want to ask everybody for your vote. I really want to hear your feedback, and it's better for me if you really like it, indicate that on the scale. If you really don't like it, indicate that on the scale. Things in the middle just kind of like wash out. But please do take some time and fill that out. That would mean a lot to me. So, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Occupying all of Chris's time over here. So Chris, John Alday with SEMA. We know each other
yeah,
from
man, how you doing?
IBM days. So we're a traditional VAR as well. We got onto the cloud, 5-6 years ago. But our challenge has always been, how do we get the leads? How do we get, that, groundswell of, leads coming from not our existing clients and stuff. So what were some of the things that you did that, created this, large, resell of the cloud or CSP business and stuff?
Yeah, so first thing is we gave a lot away. We created some intellectual property, little things. We're not a developer, you know us, man, we're IBM guys, right? I mean, we're not a big development company. But quickly what I found is you're like, you know what, man, these PowerShell scripts, They're a pain in the ass, right? You know, these things to do what the engineers know. Well, let me take a few PowerShell scripts, put a nice, elegant, easy to use GUI on top of them so the normal person can go ahead and do them. Outsourced it to India, I think it cost me $5 grand. I would recommend taking a budget of about $20,000, getting some people from India, talk to your clients, talk to your help desk, your admins, and come up with some little tools. Invest 20 grand and then give them away. And that to me was absolutely the best lead generator ever, where people will come in, hey man, thanks a lot for this, great little widget, and I have like 100 of them. I mean, it's like crazy. I just built all these little things, and people come in and we give them away. And the other thing that we give away is the opportunity to do like little monthly assessments and stuff. That it's all bots that we just some program that doesn't take anybody's any time. So those are great. But I would recommend taking a budget, 5, 10, 20 grand. And get 3 or 4 little things that you can give away to people, and have them download it off my website for free. But you gotta pay for the content, and through giving some quality information. We found that to be really successful. And then tips and tricks to the admins have been just massively successful, and that's by talking to our help desk and our customers' help desk.
Okay. All right,
I hope that helps.
Thank you. All right, thank you guys very much for coming and for sticking with us, and enjoy the rest of your conference, and thank you for your partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, William.
Thanks, guys.